I want to welcome everybody today to this webinar about the Pilot Awards. This is going to be information for our potential applicants. This award program is supported by the U.S. Deprescribing Research Network. I'm Amanda Mixon, and with me is Dr. Sandra Simmons. We lead the Pilot and Scientific Discoveries Core for the network. And I also want to welcome Carmen Reyes and Dr. Nikki Brandt, who lead the Stakeholder Engagement Core and are going to speak later on in this presentation. Additionally, we have Dr. Mike Steinman, who's the principal investigator of USDeN, along with Dr. Cynthia Boyd. Make sure my slides are moving. So to begin with, we have no relevant disclosures. We'd certainly like to thank the National Institute on Aging for funding the network for another 5 years, beginning last year, through an R33 mechanism. We'd like to thank our Scientific Advisory Board, and special thanks to Raha Sharuti and Jonathan Norton, who make this network run smoothly and are here today with us as well. So, what is the U.S. Deprescribing Research Network, or USDeN? Well, formally, it's the entities you see on this screen, led by Dr. Cynthia Boyd and Dr. Mike Steinman. They are the leadership of the network. And it's also all of you who are part of the community interested in and working in the area of deprescribing. In the network, there are 3 main cores. First is the Investigator and Grant Catalyst Core. Next is our Pilot and Scientific Discovery Core, which I mentioned that we lead. And then the third is the Stakeholder and Engagement Core, led by Ms. Reyes and Dr. Brandt. And you can see the Scientific Advisory Board, as well as an executive committee, and then we have specific development projects. I'd like to note that all the information we present today is also available on the USDeN website, which has the link at the bottom of this screen. To begin with, the purpose of the awards, the Pilot Awards, is to expand the quality, quantity, and translational impact of deprescribing research that involves older adults. We aim to fund pilot projects that are provided mostly to, but not exclusively to, junior investigators. The project should provide key preliminary data, proof of concept, or developmental work that leads to larger future research studies. So, a little bit about the scope of the Pilot Awards. We're seeking to fund pilot awards that have a direct and clear relationship to deprescribing, be relevant to the care of older adults, including those with vulnerabilities like frailty and Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And they demonstrate a clear path to future grants, research opportunities, and/or career development focused on deprescribing. And just so that we sort of level set about what is deprescribing, we like the definition from the University of South Australia that says that deprescribing is the process of withdrawal, dose reduction, or substitution of an inappropriate, that means high risk, unnecessary, or low benefit medication supervised by a healthcare professional with the goal of managing polypharmacy. Also, this is relevant to those without polypharmacy, thereby improving outcomes. And this definition resides on our website as well. For this cycle of funding, we have several priority areas. Those are deprescribing in a variety of care settings, such as home health and hospice, as well as inpatient and outpatient settings. We're interested in point of care tools to help clinicians, patients, and caregivers to stop or reduce medications. We would like to see applications around patient-important outcomes in deprescribing, those that are defined by patients, and then finally, the area of health disparities. So I want to share some information about our prior pilot awardees so you can get an idea of the type of topics that we have funded previously. So last year, we had 2 pilot awardees. The first one was Dr. Jiha Lee at the University of Michigan. She's interested in de-escalation of anti-TNF medications in older adults with rheumatoid arthritis. And the second award was to Dr. Amy Pickering at the University of Pittsburgh and the VA there, looking at racial and ethnic disparities in deprescribing and deprescribing low-value medications in older U.S. veterans. In the current year that just began, we have 3 pilot awardees. The first is Dr. Michelle Keller at the University of Southern California, who's interested in designing and pilot testing an educational intervention to equip inpatient nurses for engaging osteoporotic fracture patients in deprescribing benzodiazepine and Z drugs. The second is Dr. Nicholas Schiltz at the Case Western Reserve University, who's interested in deprescribing potentially inappropriate medications in age-friendly health systems. And then finally, Dr. Nguyen at the University of Pennsylvania, who is looking at an impact of pharmacist-led series of N-of-1 trials evaluating the effect of deprescribing antimuscarinic overactive bladder medications on cognitive function and quality of life for individuals with Parkinson's disease. So just to review some of the statistics around the last year of the award cycle, that was the applications that were sent in last year. So we had 15 letters of intent that were submitted. And then of those, 11 were invited to complete a full application and submit that. And then 3 awards were funded. We anticipate for the next coming year that we will have 2 awards funded. These are just some grants, some quotes from our awardees over the past several years, just giving us some idea of how valuable it was for them to receive these awards. Overall, we get very positive feedback about the pilot award process, as well as the support that they receive. So now I'm going to discuss eligibility criteria. We are looking for applicants that have a doctoral degree. That could be an MD or DO, a PhD, PharmD, a Doctor of Nursing Practice or equivalent. They need to be employed as a faculty research scientist or equivalent position by the start date of the award. So people who are in training would need to secure some type of faculty or research scientist position by the time that the award money is distributed. They need to work at a college, university, medical, or nursing school that has been registered with the system award management system. And then eligible institutions are U.S. colleges, universities, medical or nursing schools, or other fiscally responsible organizations. At this point, non-U.S. institutions are not eligible to apply nor receive funds as part of a subcontract award. Now I'll talk about the available funds for the pilot awards. So each award is up to $30,000 in direct costs. That being said, the total costs should not exceed $50,000, which is inclusive of direct and indirect costs. The indirect costs charged by the recipient institution should be at the federally negotiated rate. We anticipate that the funds will be distributed around May of 2026 for use over a 1-year period. And as I said, this year we plan to distribute 2 awards. A little bit more about the content of the applications. We want to emphasize that the types of studies that are appropriate for funding include those that collect preliminary data, have a proof of concept approach, or have developmental work that provides a clear pathway to future larger scale research studies. And certainly this might require different types of study designs, including things that will lead to future clinical trials, observational studies, in-depth qualitative evaluation, or even to implementation science type studies. So you may be wondering what is important to submit and how to submit. So I'll go over that now. The first step is that we do have a letter of intent that is now required. The first page is administrative data that you see on the left-hand side. That includes the applicant's name and academic rank. If they are a junior or early investigator, that means within 5 years of their appointment to a faculty position, they would need to have a primary mentor. You can name other key personnel and project roles, the name of the U.S. institution in which they are working, the project title, and then alignment with priority areas, although this is not a formally scored area of the application. And then in pages 2 and 3 is a summary of the study, going over, in this order, the research aims, the significance of the problem that you're trying to address, the target population and planned sample size, the target clinical setting, the research plan study design, the intervention and comparison group if it's applicable, for example, for a trial, stakeholder engagement plan, the ability to complete this in the 1-year time period, and then next steps to advance your career. These are submitted through the web-based portal on our website. You can see the link there. So the format is 3 pages, 1/2-inch margins, 11-point Arial font. These will be due September 19th, so a little bit earlier than in past years, by midnight Pacific time. At that point, a group of the executive committee will review the letters of intent, and we will notify those who are invited to submit a full application by September 30th, 2025. And only those who are invited to submit a full application actually move on to the next stage. If you are invited to that next stage, we ask you to submit a full proposal, which is a maximum of 5 pages, including a cover page. Again, similar format to prior. This does not include the references and some other pieces that I'll speak about in a minute. The first page is the cover page, and then the 2nd through 5th pages are in order of the study aims, significance, stakeholder engagement, innovation, approach, that's the scientific approach, and then future aims. If you are invited to this stage, we ask that you submit the full application by November 14th, 2025 at midnight Pacific time. So in addition to those 5 pages, there are some other required materials that we ask you to submit. Again, does not count towards that 5-page limit. First, we ask for a 1/2-page project description that's in lay terms to share with non-researchers and its relevance to stakeholders. We ask for an NIH-style biosketch from the PI and the primary mentor, as well as any co-investigators. The budget forms should have a budget summary and justification, as well as the scope of work and inclusion of the F&A rate agreement from the institution. And for junior investigators, we'd like a less than 1-page mentoring plan with a letter of support from your mentor and an assurance of the faculty status by the time you begin the award. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Carmen Reyes, who's going to be talking about stakeholder engagement, which is a required part of the pilot award application.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm just going to review a few slides here that are related to the criteria and the RFA regarding the stakeholder engagement plan. So first, we need the participation of at least 2 stakeholder types, either on the advisory board capacity or a full member of the study research team, and is required unless there's a compelling case why this is not feasible or informative. In case there is a compelling case, otherwise than that, stakeholders must include older adults, patients, and/or caregivers, and at least 1 additional community partner, frontline clinical staff or provider, health systems administrator, or leaders, or others, depending on the focus of the project. And it's important to tell the reader or give the reader a detailed description of the stakeholders, how they relate to the study topic in terms of their organizational affiliation, their background, relevant experience, motivation for participating in the project, and other types of things that are related to the project activities. Help us understand and describe How will you incorporate meaningful engagement with one or more stakeholders or stakeholder groups that inform some aspect of the research process, including topic selection, study design, how to conduct the conduct of the actual or implementation of the research piece itself, and for final distribution or dissemination of results. Also provide a detailed how stakeholders are selected for the engagement and how that interacts with the engagement goals and the study aims and objectives. Where were they selected, or how were they selected, and how they will be recruited if not recruited already. Include, and this is really important because we find a lot of omissions in this sometimes, upon reviews, a budget compensation plan that outlines the stakeholder will be compensated for their time and efforts, a timeline of the stakeholders' expected study related to activities, along with information about planned compensation for their involvement, which should be further specified in the budget plan and justification pages. And the last slide here is just some pitfalls, some things that we have identified through the years of this process. Sometimes there's misidentifying all scientific/clinical research team partners as stakeholders. Their lack of appropriate compensation for no compensation, lack of clear explanation of how stakeholders connect to the project, specific role, type, level of direct involvement, and a lack of varied stakeholder representation, such as a lack of older adults, caregivers involved in the study. Also want to mention, not on the slide here, if you can go to the, if I can direct you to the website, there you go. Thank you. There on our page, the stakeholder resource page, there's a great description of if a stakeholder engagement plan had been submitted by previous applicants that might help guide your development of your plan. I'm going to stop there.
Thanks so much, Carmen. That was great. Yeah, there's some great videos, recordings on that website, a portion of the website around engaging stakeholders. So we encourage you to look at that and some examples of prior applicants. So once you have all of your documents created, we ask that you submit the full application online as one PDF at the portal for the network. It is this address right here, which is through the grant opportunities portion of the website. So once these proposals are submitted, they get reviewed by a scientific panel as well as the stakeholder council. We undergo an NIH-style review process where we have the applications scored and then discussed in an NIH-style study section. So I'll go over now a little bit of how the scoring criteria is structured. So these are the actual descriptions of what the reviewers are looking for. So first is the overall impact. That's how much the likelihood that this project will lead to sustained and powerful influence on the field of deprescribing research. We ask that you address innovation. How is this innovative and relevant and important? Does it fill a gap in our knowledge or seek to shift current shortcomings in deprescribing research? Does it include any new novel concepts, methodologies, or interventions? And then, of course, the scientific rigor of the approach. So that's really focused on the aims and objectives, the population that you're looking to engage, the design and methodologies, as well as analyses should be all clear and appropriate. And then a description of any potential problems and alternative strategies, as well as any preliminary studies that help support this approach. The feasibility of the study to be done in 1 year time frame, as well as the budget to do so, and then the investigator, the PI, and the environment in which they work, and how conducive that is to the success of the project, and the ability to have a mentor if you are a junior investigator. A few more criteria. One is the potential for the study to lead to larger scale projects that, again, focus on expanding the quality, quantity, and translational impact of deprescribing. And this could be, a description of how you plan to publish, other future grants, other career milestones, and grant submissions. The stakeholder engagement piece is scored by our stakeholder council. They meet and review all of the full applications as well. And they're looking for those elements that Carmen mentioned. How are you engaging stakeholders? Who are they? How do they help with accomplishing the goals of the study? And any methods you're using for engaging them. Next is the relevance to aging. Of course, we're focused on how deprescribing affects older adults. And then, excuse me, the last two areas, priority to our relevance to our priority areas, as I mentioned before. This is not scored on the NIH scale, but it's just, how does it relate to some of our priorities? And then finally, the budget, again, not scored officially, but we do look to see if there are reasonable use of the funds provided. So after that review process, then there's a selection of the awardees. And after that, then the year begins. And we wanted to review some of the expectations and resources that are available to the awardees. So at the end of the year, when they complete their project, they will submit a year-end structured report to us. They're invited to present their work at the annual meeting of the network. And then we will track their progress and yearly online surveys to see what publications they've had, what kinds of grant applications they've put in or received. Additionally, the awardees have quarterly calls with myself and Dr. Simmons. And that first quarterly call is also held in conjunction with the Stakeholder Engagement Core to discuss the approach for stakeholder engagement, but then can also be scheduled ad hoc with the Engagement Core. We also invite the awardees to sign up to the USDeN website and to receive the newsletter, as well as to attend webinars. The next network webinar is coming up on Tuesday, September 30th, and I believe that Jonathan's going to put the link in the chat. The network also has an optional consultative service that you would have access to. This is for a very specific question that you would like to ask an expert that can be answered in about a 1-hour conversation. In addition, these awardees, these activities help to foster community across our USDeN network. So I would also like to mention another activity supported by the network, which is the Grant Catalyst Scholars Program. We're seeking applicants for the second cohort of the program. Eligible participants are those with an MD or DO, PhD, PharmD, or equivalent, and they're planning to submit a deprescribing related grant in the calendar year 2026. The preference will be given to applicants who are in earlier stages of a research-focused career, again, up to 5 years in a faculty position and not yet having received an R01 or equivalent or tenure at their institution. And the program consists of several components. The first being there are virtual works in progress meetings with US and international peers and a core curriculum focused on successful grant writing. There are career development activities during the annual meeting that happens once a year, as well as throughout the year of this program. And then you do have access to all the USDeN resources as well. The request for applications will be released soon, so visit the website deprescribingresearch.org to stay up to date for that announcement. I also want to mention our annual meeting for next year in 2026. It is April 27th through the 29th. It is going to be a joint meeting of USDeN as well as the International conference on deprescribing that's going to be co-hosted by the US group as well as the Canadian Deprescribing Network. And it's going to take place in Montreal, Canada. We would love to have a very robust participation by people in the network by submitting abstracts by October 15th. So that's coming up pretty soon. There may be an opportunity for late breaking abstracts to be accepted, but hopefully we will keep you abreast of that possibility. We'd love to see you all there. It's going to be a really robust meeting, and we're looking forward to interacting with all of both the US participants in the network, but also our international colleagues. I do want to go over the key dates for these pilot awards just one more time. So the letter of intent, which is required now, is due Friday, September 19th. We then review those, and if you are invited to submit a full application, you will be notified by September 30th. And then the full applications are due, again, submitted through the website portal by Friday, November 14th. And we plan to have the awards announced by the spring, late, winter, February, March timeframe of 2026, with anticipated funding to be starting in May of 2026. I'll just wrap up by saying, please visit our US Deprescribing Research Network's website at deprescribingresearch.org, where you can find all sorts of great information. If you haven't joined the network yet, you just click on the red button in the upper right-hand corner to receive the monthly newsletter. I just want to thank everybody for your attention. And with that, we can open it up for questions. And I think I will stop sharing.
And Amanda, actually say something real quick.
Of course. Yes, please.
First of all, thank you for leading great presentation along with Carmen. So just, I just want to emphasize two things that were mentioned by Amanda and Carmen, but just make sure they're really kind of sink in. And there were three things really. The first is that last slide, please do reach out if you have questions. We really welcome them. And so anything that comes up, don't hesitate. admin@deprescribingresearch.org. Then the second thing, just to really highlight two things were mentioned. The first is what Carmen was talking about around the sort of stakeholder engagement aspect. We know a lot of people on this call may not have prior experience doing stakeholder engagement. We understand that you may not have it all figured out at the time you write the application. And one of the things, if you are awarded, is we will work with you to think about how to further develop and strengthen your stakeholder engagement plan. But that said, during the application, it's really important to kind of take that seriously and think about and really put your best foot forward in terms of coming up with a preliminary plan, realizing you may not have it perfect and change, but really kind of not skimping on that. The second thing to not skimp on is one of the review criteria, which is the potential of the application to lead to future career development for you in deprescribing research and then future work supported, say, by larger grants, because we realize this is a small pilot grant. We take that seriously in the review process. And so one of the things we do not want to see is someone who proposes a terrific research plan and then just ends, and then there's nothing for you after that. The real goal of the program is to kind of start you on this journey or help you continue on the journey of doing impactful deprescribing research, but then have it lead somewhere. So think about, where is this going to take you in terms of the next grant? How is it going to support you for that next larger grant you're going to apply for? Or how is it going to support you in developing your future career as a deprescribing researcher? So just make sure as you're preparing your applications, just to be very clear and explicit about that, because that is important for us in the review process. Did I say that right, Amanda? Anything I missed?
Yeah, I'll just add to emphasize one other thing. We typically also do not fund quality improvement projects or people who are just clinician educators strictly. So we really do want to focus on researchers who, like Mike said, this pilot will launch them into greater chances of getting a larger research grant. And please let us know if there are other questions. I think Jonathan and Raha are monitoring the chat.
Hi, Amanda. Yes, our first question is, are we supporting any non-faculty based initiatives like patient-facing technology?
Um, so we are interested in point of care tools that, again, would be developed in a scientific way that could serve patients. But there has to be some kind of structure around whether it's the development, the evaluation of that is rigorously done with scientific methods. Um, um, I don't know, Sandra, or anything else to add to that? I'm trying to think of.
I think you've framed it in the right way. It just needs to be embedded within a scientific study, so it can't just be a tool that you're planning to develop or implement in isolation without any kind of structure around the evaluation piece of it in a research using research methodology.
So the next question we have, which Raha also, I think, answered via the Q&A feature, is if we could give a brief example about successful stakeholder engagement from prior projects. And with that, just wanted to highlight that if you go to the grants opportunities page, we do have a list of resources that further expounds upon this presentation of examples of budgets and stakeholder engagement and different plans.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the best way is to just read up on some examples of funded projects. I mean, I think what Carmen reviewed is really important, that we have to have at least two types of stakeholders involved. Again, it's going to depend on the research study that you're proposing. And so whether that, is your study focused on patients and caregivers, or is it on frontline healthcare workers, but really, how are you going to engage the people who are going to be involved in the study or as a beneficiary of the study? Those are the types of things that you need to address.
And our next question is if you could review, this person might have missed this as they just joined, about the requirements for the academic appointment. If they're applying as like a junior investigator, they're
Mhm.
staffed as a health data scientist, and we're wondering about, you know, if they're earning their PhD, when sort of the time cutoff for that.
Yeah, so what we have maintained is that the applicant, by the time that the funds are distributed, they should have some type of faculty position or research scientist type of position at an institution. So they should be have an assurance from their department chair or whoever the leadership is at their institution that they have a position that will be guaranteed at that time of the beginning. And, we're giving these awards a little bit earlier than in past years. And so I know May is kind of at the end of the academic year. So I don't know, maybe Mike can comment on whether if their appointment starts like July 1 or something, which is the normal academic year, whether that's acceptable.
Yeah, I think that's totally fine to, because May is maybe slightly ambitious because there's a lot of administrative work in terms of and approvals that need to happen to actually disperse the funds. So it might take a little while to actually get the funds. I mean, the real purpose behind this requirement is, we think that the work of people who are currently still in training, whether it be a postdoc or a fellowship, is incredibly important. But this program is really oriented towards people who are that little next stage in their career where they're just kind of getting started in their sort of first like proper job. Not even first, or like have the either at the minimum or just first getting started in that first kind of job, whether it be a research-oriented faculty member or a staff scientist, where this is kind of now your position and you're really trying to grow and advance your deep prescribing research. And so if you have any questions about this eligibility, feel free to reach out to us. Say, for example, you are entering your final year of your postdoc or your research fellowship and you're applying for places, and maybe by the time you have to submit your paperwork, you haven't selected on a job, but you're on the job market and have a few kind of potential offers coming through. Just email us in advance and let us know, and then we will sort of can take that on a case by case. If it seems very likely that you will have a faculty job in a supportive environment by the coming summer, even if it's possible that you don't know exactly which of 2 or 3 places it'll be. And then the other regarding the question here in the chat or in the Q&A function, there is a possibility if you're still in training to have it kind of be a co-PI role with a faculty member, say if you still are a postdoc. But one thing to kind of keep in mind there is we really want to have this, just sort of keep in mind what I was saying before about the big picture opportunity about helping this with your career advancement. So if that structure is allowable, but we just want to understand like what are the different roles of the different people and how will this help you as the junior person with the support of that more senior person really advance in your deep prescribing research career. And like I said, any questions, just feel free to email us and we'll be happy to chat more.
There's a similar related question about how important is the status of a junior researcher? Do you want to touch on maybe junior versus mid-career or senior, like eligibility
Sure.
For these awards?
Sure. Yeah, so typically we have been focused on junior awardees. However, if you are making a change in your research career and you're wanting to join the world of deep prescribing, I think we would still consider that. I think it's still important at that point that you have some type of maybe consultant, if not a formal mentor, who has experience in deep prescribing. I think that would be important for us to know. Typically, we have said, within 5 years of an appointment to a faculty position, but again, that's not a hard and fast rule. We will consider other people, again, if you're sort of switching career topics. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're touching on that just as Priya was sort of clarifying what she means by junior.
Yeah.
With switching career topics.
And just to get back to what we were talking about before, so the reason for the juniors, we want this to help really be meaningful to help lead people to that next stage in their career. So if you're mid-career, say, and you're switching streams, this could be totally appropriate. But if you're like, you've had 10 R01s and you're swimming in grant funds and you just want to get an extra $30,000 to support your massive research shop, or like just look somewhere else, like you're fine. But we want to save it for the people who really need it, could use this to advance. So think that in mind.
All right, our next question is there any restriction on selecting a primary mentor for junior investigators? For example, like a tenured faculty at the same institution?
Great question. So I think we would say it doesn't have to be at the same institution, but it does need to be somebody who is a research focused, mid or later career person to be able to help you as the awardee in, again, sort of the conduct of the pilot and the next steps that you're going to take in your career. I don't know, Sandra or Mike, anything you would add to that?
No, just just like Amanda said, big picture, like we want to make sure you're supported, and we think it's important that our people who are in this transitional or early points in their career, that mentorship is really important, and we just want to make sure that people are going to be adequately supported to help them succeed. And however, if there's a good way you can achieve that, then that's good. Just let us know.
We have another question coming in. Would co-primary mentors, one mid-career local and one elsewhere with subject matter expertise, would track record or mentorship be acceptable? I think I would also answer this in that if you do have specific questions, please do reach out to us as you're working on your letter of intent, and thinking about the mentorship question.
Can you say it one more time? Co-mentors, one being
Mid-career local and one elsewhere with subject matter expertise
yes,
that has a track record of mentorship.
Yeah, and I think, that's where this the portion of like your mentoring plan and the letter coming from your mentors is important to indicate to us like what role are they going to fill in mentoring you. That's the important piece.
Our next question is, do you encourage studies that have a direct aim to deprescribe a particular medicine, or are non-pharmaceutical interventions that support better health in older adults also allowed, such as like time-restricted eating?
So we are focused on deprescribing. That is, generally stopping or reducing medications. I think we would say that if it were in conjunction with other interventions, that might be acceptable, but the focus of these awards does need to have deprescribing as a piece. And again, that, can be at multiple stages of development. I'm not sure exactly, but I would say that like it can't just focus on like a behavioral change or behavioral intervention. It has to have some relevance to deprescribing.
And another question we have is, do we offer help connecting applicants with someone in deprescribing if they don't have a background in deprescribing for older adults in polypharmacy?
Yeah, so that's, I think, where you would want to reach out early before these letters of intent need to be submitted, so that we could hear about who you are and potentially pair you with somebody who we know through the network, who has maybe a similar interest or expertise or methodology that you're interested in learning. So don't wait until later on to find somebody. It's important for us to know that you've already made a connection and that person has, committed to you as a mentor or expert.
And they're asking, how do we get in touch to ask questions like that?
Yeah. I think it would be just the main email, Jonathan. Maybe you're better to answer that question.
Sure. Yeah. Yes, we have an email on our website that we can connect you to. It's admin@deprescribingresearch.org. I'll pop it in the chat in just a second.
Perfect. Yeah, and that way you can really tell us about you and what you're seeking. We do have a pretty large network and can help you connect with people who might be of help.
Can I just add one other thing that just came to mind? Many of you are familiar with changes that have occurred in the NIH landscape around what is allowable to be funded and not funded. And regardless of what our personal opinions on these topics might be. We are an NIH-funded network, so we have to follow certain rules. So one of the things we encourage you, and that, for example, gets why we now can no longer fund non-US based applicants because of those changes at the NIH level. For those of you who are interested in doing research on vulnerable populations or health disparities, we feel this is a very important topic that has been understudied, and lots of different topics are important, and this is one of them. And if you choose to write an application about that, we very much welcome it. And we also encourage you just to make sure you're telegraphing what you're interested in, but just be thoughtful in your choice of language so that it will not raise concerns among people outside of our network who might have a chance to review your grant or anything that you submit. So just keep that in mind. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out. I hope that was kind of oblique, but I hope the intention was clear.
Thank you, Mike. I'm sure people had that question in their mind.
Don't see any other questions coming in yet. So we'll probably
Okay.
give a few more minutes. We still have some time.
Sure. And like we said, if you have specific questions about your own situation, your research interest, connecting with other people, please do email at the address in the chat, the admin@deprescribingresearch.org, and we can address your questions that way.
And I know I put this in the chat, but I want to say this in the recording. This recording will be on our Grants Opportunities webpage, where you'll find our RFA and other details in the next day or so, as well as the slide deck that was presented for your reference.
Well, if there are no further questions, I want to thank everybody for their attendance, and please do reach out if you have further questions. Hope you have a great day.